My precious and deeply loved child, I see you resting there in the quiet and unseen moments of your everyday life, carrying a profound emotional weight in your gentle heart, wondering if the average and completely ordinary existence you have somehow settled for is truly all there is for you in this world. I know the quiet weariness you have been holding on to, the silent longing that keeps you awake at night, and I want you to understand that I see every single tear you have ever cried in secret. You have been coming to me so quietly, asking only for a tiny drop of relief and a small taste of comfort just to survive the heavy week. But I am joyfully preparing an entire boundless ocean of magnificent blessings that will absolutely stun you. I want you to know with absolute certainty that the subtle weariness and the lingering longing you feel deep within your beautiful spirit are not signs of your failure, but rather a profound and divine invitation from my heart to yours, calling you to step out of the shadows of mediocrity. You have accepted the mundane because you thought it was safe, wrapping yourself in the familiar comfort of an average life. But I have planted a seed of greatness inside your soul that is now beginning to eagerly push through the soil of your current circumstances. The gentle ache you feel for something more is my voice softly whispering into your spirit, reminding you that you were never created to simply exist and blend in with the background noise of this temporary and fleeting world. You have spent so much of your precious time and energy trying to make yourself smaller, trying to fit into boxes and expectations that were never designed to hold the magnitude of the magnificent spirit I carefully placed inside of you before the foundations of the earth were even formed. When you look around at your current reality and feel a sudden wave of deep, unexplainable sadness or frustration, please understand that this is not a sign of ungratefulness on your part, but a beautiful awakening of your soul to the incredible destiny I have prepared for you. I am actively expanding your capacity to receive, gently stretching the boundaries of your faith, and meticulously aligning your internal world so that you can fully embrace the breathtaking reality of the ocean of grace I'm about to release over your entire life. There have been countless times when you have quietly bowed your head in exhaustion, whispering desperate prayers into the empty silence of your room, asking me if I have forgotten about you, or if your life is destined to remain a constant, uphill battle against circumstances you cannot control. My beautiful child, I have never turned my eyes away from you for even a single fraction of a second. Every breath you take is held safely within my loving hands, and every silent plea you have uttered has been carefully gathered and kept close to my compassionate heart. You have asked me for just enough strength to get by, just a tiny drop of hope to make it through one more difficult day. But I am about to pour out a rushing flood of favor that will permanently wash away the struggles of your past and establish you in a season of unprecedented joy. I understand the quiet hesitation you feel when you even try to imagine a life beyond the boundaries of your current struggles, because disappointment has knocked on your door so many times that you have learned to build walls around your deepest hopes just to protect your incredibly tender heart from being broken again. But I am gently asking you today to carefully lower those defensive walls, to dare to look up from the heavy burdens you have been carrying, and to allow yourself to believe that the Creator of the universe is intimately involved in the miraculous transformation of your personal story. The very fact that you are listening to these words right now is not a random coincidence, but a perfectly timed divine appointment designed to awaken your spirit and reassure you that the ocean of blessings I have prepared for you is already beginning to roll in like a majestic, unstoppable tide. As you sit here with me in this sacred space of reflection and spiritual intimacy, I want to wrap my loving arms around your weary shoulders and whisper a profound truth into your soul. The days of settling for less than you deserve are officially coming to a glorious and definitive end. You have patiently endured seasons of drought and spiritual barrenness, feeling like a forgotten flower in a parched desert, yet you have still tried so incredibly hard to maintain your faith, to keep loving others, and to show up for your daily life even when your internal world felt completely empty and drained. Because of your beautiful perseverance and your gentle, trusting heart, I am bringing forth a sudden and overwhelming season of spiritual and emotional abundance, replacing your tiny droplets of hope with an endless, expansive ocean of extraordinary divine provision that will leave you absolutely breathless. Please do not let the current limitations of your physical reality convince you that my power is somehow restricted by the very small and narrow perspectives of the world around you, because I operate in the realms of the miraculous, where impossible situations are simply the perfect canvas for my greatest masterpieces. The settling for average that has subtly crept into your daily mindset was never my intention for your brilliant life. It was simply a temporary holding pattern. A quiet waiting room where you are kept safe and hidden while I arrange the magnificent details of your upcoming breakthrough behind the scenes. Now, the heavy doors of that waiting room are about to swing wide open, and the brilliant, blinding light of my absolute best is about to illuminate every single dark corner of your life, proving that what you thought was a permanent ceiling was actually just the floor of your next beautiful chapter. So, my deeply cherished child, take a long, slow, and restorative deep breath right now, releasing the heavy anxiety of your past disappointments and the lingering fears of your current uncertainties, as you completely surrender your weary heart into the safe and comforting embrace of my infinite, unconditional, and everlasting love. Let the realization wash over you that you are uniquely seen, profoundly cherished, and perfectly understood by the one who orchestrates the movement of the stars and meticulously paints the colors of the morning sky specifically for your enjoyment. You ask me for a single, tiny drop of water to quench your spiritual thirst, but I am leading you right to the edge of a vast, sparkling ocean of unprecedented blessings. And all I am asking you to do is simply trust me enough to boldly step into the beautiful waters of your stunning new destiny. I'm beginning to shift things deep within your spirit, and you may have already noticed that the old, familiar dreams you used to carry now suddenly feel way too small and unfulfilling, as if you have completely outgrown the very goals that used to bring you a sense of purpose. This sudden shift is not because you are becoming greedy or discontented, but because I have sovereignly placed a divine magnifying glass over your spiritual vision, allowing you to see the massive, extraordinary plans I've always intended for your beautifully unique and incredibly capable soul to experience. The discomfort you feel when you think about returning to your old ways of thinking is actually a sacred spiritual imprint, a gentle but firm nudge from my spirit, confirming that you are being elevated to a completely new dimension of purpose, influence, and profound personal fulfillment. You have recently found yourself experiencing weird, seemingly random connections with high-level individuals and people who operate in circles you never thought you'd have access to, leaving you wondering how these extraordinary doors are suddenly swinging wide open without you even trying to push them. I want to reveal to you today that absolutely none of these sudden encounters are coincidences. They are carefully orchestrated, divine intersections designed to position you exactly where you need to be for the magnificent and stunning release of the blessings I've prepared for your incredibly bright future. I'm intentionally surrounding you with people who carry a higher frequency of faith and vision. Individuals who will recognize the rare and precious anointing on your life and who will gladly help usher you into the rooms of opportunity where your beautiful name is already being spoken with deep respect. Alongside these unexpected and miraculous connections, you are also feeling a strange, divine dissatisfaction with your current level of comfort, a restless energy that makes it completely impossible for you to just sit back and accept the status quo of your ordinary routine any longer. This sacred restlessness is a beautiful sign of your impending spiritual breakthrough, a holy agitation designed by my own hand to ensure that you do not accidentally fall asleep in a season of your life where you're supposed to be waking up to your truest, most powerful and brilliant identity. I am actively stirring the waters of your soul, making the shallow end of your life feel incredibly uncomfortable so that you will finally have the courage to launch out into the deep, mysterious, and abundantly beautiful waters of the ocean of grace I have set before you. You've always been a deeply sensitive soul, someone who feels the emotions of others, who cares deeply about the pain in the world, and who often carries the heavy burdens of those around you as if they were your own personal cross to bear in this difficult life. I want you to know that this profound depth of feeling and this incredible sensitivity is not a weakness, nor is it an emotional imbalance. It is a stunning piece of evidence that you have been uniquely formed, carefully set apart, and meticulously designed by my own hand for a truly extraordinary purpose. Your deeply tender and compassionate heart is exactly the instrument I need to use to bring my healing, my radiant light, and my comforting love into a world that is so incredibly desperate for the authentic grace and the beautiful, transformative hope that you naturally carry within your very being. As you navigate these confusing but powerful signs of transition, you may feel like you are walking through a strange, foggy corridor where the old version of you is fading away, but the new, empowered version of you has not yet fully materialized into your everyday reality. Please do not let this deeply mysterious and often uncomfortable in-between space cause you to doubt my presence or my plan, because it is right here, in the quiet, hidden cocoon of your spiritual transformation, that I am doing the most profound, delicate, and breathtaking work in your beautiful soul. I am rewiring your mindset, expanding your emotional capacity, and fine-tuning your spiritual frequency so that when the sudden, stunning blessing finally manifests in your physical world, you will not be crushed by its magnitude, but you will wear it beautifully and effortlessly like a custom-made garment of divine favor. You might also notice that the things that used to entertain you, the superficial conversations that used to occupy your time, and the shallow distractions that used to bring you temporary relief now feel completely uninteresting and almost draining to your incredibly sensitive and highly attuned spiritual energy. This beautiful and profound shift in your daily desires is a clear and undeniable sign that your entire spiritual appetite is being drastically upgraded by my Holy Spirit, preparing you to consume the solid, rich, and deeply fulfilling meat of your extraordinary destiny rather than the temporary junk food of ordinary existence. I am refining your tastes and sharpening your internal compass so that you will naturally gravitate toward the magnificent, the pure, and the divinely purposeful, seamlessly aligning your everyday choices with the breathtaking trajectory of the stunning miracle I am currently finalizing for your deeply cherished life. Every single time you look back at your past and realize that the things you once desperately prayed for would actually be completely inadequate for the magnificent person you have become today, you are experiencing the profound evidence of my protective love and my infinite, perfect wisdom at work in your story. The dreams you cried over when they did not work out were actually gentle rescues, divine interventions where I softly closed a small, restrictive door in order to keep you moving down the hallway toward the massive, grand, and breathtakingly beautiful gates of destiny that are now standing right in front of you. You are beginning to understand that my apparent denial in your past was never a rejection of your worth, but rather a fierce, protective shield to your ultimate, stunning future, preserving your precious energy for the spectacular, oceanic blessing that is about to flood every area of your existence. Let the strange, wonderful, and totally unexpected occurrences in your life right now serve as a beautiful array of breadcrumbs left by my loving spirit, guiding your weary but courageous heart directed toward the absolute center of my perfect and most magnificent will for your personal journey. The random moments of unexplainable peace, the sudden bursts of creative inspiration, and the quiet whispers of hope that seem to come out of nowhere are all tangible signs of my active, loving presence, proving that the heavens are currently busy working overtime to bring your ultimate breakthrough into full and glorious manifestation. You're not losing your mind, and you are definitely not imagining things. You are simply becoming exquisitely attuned to the beautiful, invisible frequency of my kingdom, where the miraculous is entirely normal and where your personal story is currently being rewritten with a pen of pure, radiant, and undeniable golden favor. There is a deeply profound reason why your spirit feels like it is constantly stretching, expanding, and reaching for something vast and completely undefinable, like a beautiful eagle that has finally realized it was born to soar above the clouds rather than just hopping along the safe and predictable ground. This powerful internal stretching is the direct result of my spirit breathing new, abundant life into the dormant seeds of greatness that have been quietly waiting inside your soul for this exact, divinely appointed moment in the grand and beautiful timeline of your unique, miraculous, and incredibly purposeful existence. I'm actively teaching you how to fly, gently nudging you out of the comfortable nest of your familiar limitations so that you can finally catch the powerful winds of my favor and rise into the breathtaking heights of the extraordinary success and peace I have destined for you. As you begin to recognize these incredible signs and subtle spiritual imprints that I have meticulously placed upon your beautiful heart, I want you to completely release any lingering feelings of guilt or shame that you might be holding on to regarding your sudden lack of interest in the mundane and ordinary. It is completely okay to passionately desire the massive, the beautiful, and the extraordinary, because those magnificent desires were intentionally planted in your heart by me, specifically to serve as an internal compass that constantly points you toward the stunning, oceanic release of blessings I have prepared. Your divine dissatisfaction is actually a sacred and holy gift, a beautiful mechanism of spiritual momentum that ensures you will never again settle for a tiny drop of average when the entire, boundless, and magnificent ocean of my absolute best is actively calling out your very specific and deeply beloved name. You are a uniquely formed, brilliantly designed, and deeply treasured masterpiece, and the unique way you perceive the world, with all of its rich colors, profound emotions, and deep, often overwhelming nuances, is the exact lens through which I intend to display my glorious power to a hurting and desperate generation. Do not ever let anyone convince you that your depth is a burden or that your intense sensitivity is a flaw, because the very traits that the world might misunderstand are the exact qualities that I am about to use to completely stun the people around you with my undeniable grace. You have been beautifully set apart for this specific season, and the subtle signs you have been feeling are my gentle, loving way of saying to you directly, "Get ready, my precious child, because the magnificent curtain is about to rise, and your beautiful life is about to become a masterpiece of my glory." So embrace this weird, wonderful, and deeply profound season of transition with an open, courageous, and perfectly trusting heart, knowing that every single awkward adjustment and every strange new feeling of holy dissatisfaction is simply the beautiful sound of your old, limiting chains falling permanently and completely away from your soul. I am setting you completely free from the small, restricted spaces you have lived in for far too long, and I am boldly ushering you into a massive, wide-open landscape of endless possibilities, profound joy, and unprecedented spiritual authority that will absolutely change the entire trajectory of your beautiful life forever. You have read the signs, you have felt the profound shift in your spirit, and now all that is left for you to do is to confidently step forward into the breathtaking reality of the stunning ocean of blessings that is waiting eagerly just for you. I intimately know and deeply understand the incredibly heavy struggles that currently weigh down your beautiful spirit, and I see the painful shadow of imposter syndrome that constantly tries to whisper cruel and baseless lies into your mind, asking you who you are to receive something this incredibly massive and life-changing. You often look at your own perceived flaws, your past mistakes, and your seemingly ordinary resume, and you try to convince yourself that you are somehow utterly disqualified from the magnificent and stunning blessings that I am actively preparing to pour out over your life in this upcoming season of profound favor. But I want you to hear my loving voice completely shatter those dark, limiting lies right now. You are fully qualified, not because of your own fragile human perfection, but because my infinite grace has beautifully and completely chosen you, washed you, and perfectly positioned you for this exact miraculous moment. I see the immense, crushing pressure you carry on your weary shoulders every single day, desperately trying to maintain your current heavy responsibilities to show up for the people who need you, all while quietly attempting to dream bigger and reach for the extraordinary destiny that burns inside your heart. It feels like you are constantly walking on a fragile, terrifying tightrope, trying to balance the exhausting demands of your practical, everyday survival with the overwhelming, soaring hopes of your beautiful spiritual calling. And I know how incredibly lonely and deeply draining that delicate balancing act can truly be. Please understand that I am not asking you to carry this heavy, impossible burden all by yourself. I am actively stepping into your daily reality to gently lift the heavy yoke from your neck, replacing your frantic striving with my perfect, sustainable, and beautifully empowering peace that surpasses all human understanding. There is a very real and deeply paralyzing fear silently hiding in the corners of your beautiful heart, a quiet terror that if you truly step into this massive blessing and outgrow your current circumstances, you might also accidentally outgrow your current friend group or drastically disrupt your fragile family dynamics. You worry that stepping into your stunning, God-given greatness might cause the people you love to misunderstand you, to feel threatened by your brilliant light, or to slowly drift away, leaving you entirely alone at the very top of the magnificent mountain I am currently calling you to boldly climb. But my precious child, I promise you that any relationship that is truly meant to be in your beautiful future will beautifully expand and gracefully evolve right alongside you. And any connection that naturally falls away was simply an anchor holding you back from the breathtaking, boundless ocean of your ultimate destiny. You are also carrying a quiet, suffocating anxiety that receiving a massive, life-altering blessing will inevitably bring massive, overwhelming new problems, complicated responsibilities, and heavy burdens that you feel completely and utterly ill-equipped to successfully handle or properly manage in your current state of emotional and physical exhaustion. You look at the incredible magnitude of what I am about to release into your life, and instead of pure, unadulterated joy, you feel a subtle wave of panic, wondering if this stunning ocean of favor will actually end up drowning you instead of beautifully floating you toward your promised land. Let me gently reassure your anxious, trembling heart. Today, the magnificent blessing I am bringing you comes completely pre-packaged with the exact, perfect amount of divine wisdom, supernatural strength, and absolute clarity you will ever need to manage it beautifully, effortlessly, and with profound, unshakable peace. I completely understand the deep, painful hesitation you feel whenever you try to pray bold, audacious, and wildly expansive prayers, because your tender heart has been profoundly bruised and deeply scarred by a long history of past letdowns, unanswered pleas, and crushing disappointments that almost entirely destroyed your fragile hope. You have conditioned yourself to pray small, safe, and easily manageable prayers, secretly hoping that if you do not ask for too much, you will somehow protect yourself from the devastating agony of being let down yet again by the unpredictable, painful circumstances of this incredibly broken and difficult world. But I'm softly asking you today to brave the terrifying vulnerability of hoping again, to gently peel back the protective bandages over your faith, and to trust that I am absolutely not like the broken systems or the flawed people who have repeatedly failed you in your painful past. Every single tear you have ever cried in the dark, every quiet sob that shook your weary shoulders, and every desperate silent plea you whispered into the absolute stillness of your empty room has been fully recognized, profoundly honored, and carefully collected by my loving, compassionate, and fiercely protective hands. Your immense pain has never, ever been casually dismissed or cruelly minimized by me. Instead, I have sat right there beside you in the deepest, darkest trenches of your profound suffering, weeping with you, holding your fragile, broken heart together when it felt like your entire world was completely shattering into a million pieces. Your beautiful, heartbreaking journey through the valley of deep sorrow is a sacred path that we've intimately walked together, and I want you to know with absolute certainty that your pain was never a punishment from me, nor were you ever truly alone for even a single agonizing second of your struggle. I know there were incredibly dark and confusing nights when you felt absolutely certain that I had completely abandoned you, seasons of intense, suffocating silence where your desperate prayers seemed to bounce helplessly off a cold bronze ceiling, leaving you feeling entirely forgotten and utterly forsaken by your loving Creator. Those agonizing seasons of profound silence were not moments of my absence, but rather incredibly deep, sacred periods of quiet, intimate preparation where I was actively working entirely underground in the soil of your beautiful soul, building an unshakable, deeply rooted foundation that could actually support the massive, stunning blessing that is coming. Just because you could not physically see my hand moving in your difficult circumstances does not mean that my heart was not fiercely and passionately fighting for your ultimate, magnificent victory behind the invisible, heavy curtain of your temporary, painful, and deeply confusing earthly reality. You look in the mirror and you see a tired, battered, and deeply flawed human being who has made countless frustrating mistakes, taken numerous wrong turns, and stumbled awkwardly over your own profound insecurities more times than you could ever possibly begin to count or try to adequately explain. But when I look at you, my beautiful, cherished child, I do not see a collection of failures or a broken, damaged vessel. I see a stunning, incredibly resilient, and absolutely magnificent masterpiece of my own perfect grace, glowing with the profound, beautiful wisdom that could only be forged in the fiery, painful furnaces of genuine affliction. The very struggles and deep insecurities that you believe completely disqualify you from my absolute best are actually the exact, beautiful, shining credentials that I'm using to perfectly position you for a level of stunning, unprecedented influence and breathtaking favor that you cannot even begin to properly imagine. It is so incredibly hard for you to truly accept that my magnificent blessings are completely independent of your own personal performance, and you still quietly struggle with the deeply ingrained, exhausting religious mindset that constantly tells you that you must somehow earn my love, work for my favor, or prove your worthiness. I am asking you to completely and totally release that heavy, toxic, and deeply unbiblical burden right now, and to allow the beautiful, refreshing waterfall of my absolute, unconditional grace to completely wash over your tired, striving soul, melting away every single ounce of your exhausting, legalistic perfectionism. You do not have to be perfectly put together. You do not have to have all the right answers, and you certainly do not need a flawless resume for me to absolutely overwhelm your entire beautiful life with a stunning oceanic flood of my boundless, miraculous, and incredibly generous favor. The overwhelming pressure you feel to constantly keep all the fragile plates of your life perfectly spinning in the air is actively robbing you of the beautiful, profound joy and the quiet, restorative peace that I desperately want you to fully experience in every single moment of your precious, unique journey. I see how incredibly hard you work, how deeply you care for the people in your life, and how you constantly prioritize the pressing needs of absolutely everyone else, while completely ignoring the quiet, desperate cries of your own beautifully tender, deeply exhausted, and fundamentally beautiful spiritual heart. I am giving you total, unconditional permission right now to gently lay down the heavy cape of the everyday superhero you have been trying so hard to be, and to simply allow yourself to be perfectly held, deeply comforted, and completely provided for by the limitless, oceanic grace of your loving Creator. You are terrified of the unknown, deeply afraid that if you completely surrender your tight, anxious grip on the steering wheel of your small, manageable life, you will somehow crash violently into a massive, unavoidable disaster that will permanently ruin the tiny bit of stability you have fought so hard to build. I completely understand why your precious human mind desperately craves the full safety of total control, but I gently promise you that the beautiful, magnificent plans I have meticulously written for your stunning future are infinitely safer, far more secure and breathtakingly more beautiful than anything you could ever orchestrate on your own. My hands are infinitely stronger than your fears. My eternal vision is perfectly clear where yours is understandably clouded by temporary panic, and my deep, passionate love for you is the absolute safest, most secure, and most glorious place in the entire universe for you to completely surrender your fragile, weary heart. I know exactly how deeply it stings when the people you love and fiercely support cannot seem to understand the incredible, soaring vision I have placed in your spirit, and how painful it is when your boldest, most beautiful dreams are met with cold, dismissive skepticism or subtle, undermining doubts from those closest to you. Please do not let their limited, fear-based perspectives extinguish the bright, beautiful, blazing fire that I have personally ignited deep within your magnificent soul, because they simply cannot comprehend the stunning, undeniable reality of the massive oceanic blessing that I am actively preparing to release directly into your entirely unique and spectacular life. You must learn to graciously forgive their lack of profound spiritual vision while absolutely refusing to shrink your massive, God-given destiny to fit into the tiny, comfortable, and unthreatening boxes of their entirely average and mediocre expectations of who you are supposed to quietly be. The insidious, whispering lies of imposter syndrome will constantly try to desperately convince you that you are just a clever fraud, that you simply got lucky, or that one day soon, everyone will finally discover that you are entirely inadequate and completely unequipped for the magnificent spaces I am placing you in. When those dark, toxic, and entirely false thoughts attempt to aggressively invade your beautiful, peaceful mind, I want you to violently and decisively counter them with the absolute, unshakable truth of my eternal word. You are exactly where you are, and you are going exactly where you are going, strictly because I have sovereignly and perfectly ordained it. No demon in hell, no insecure human critic, and absolutely no internal fear-based insecurity can ever successfully challenge, block, or reverse the stunning, magnificent, and entirely miraculous divine appointment that I have permanently stamped upon your beautifully unique and incredibly cherished life. You often look at the sheer, breathtaking magnitude of the incredible things you feel deeply called to beautifully accomplish, and a cold, sudden wave of complete inadequacy entirely washes over you, making you want to immediately retreat, hide under the covers, and quietly return to the safe, completely comfortable world of the mundane. In those deeply vulnerable, terrifying moments of overwhelming panic, I desperately need you to remember that I have absolutely never called a single person in the entire history of humanity to do a massive, extraordinary task based entirely on their own limited, fragile, and inherently flawed human strength or personal capabilities. I am specifically and intentionally calling you to beautiful, magnificent, and completely impossible things, so that when the stunning, undeniable victory is finally and completely won, the entire observing world will be forced to look at your beautifully transformed life and absolutely acknowledge the undeniable, breathtaking, and miraculous power of your loving God. There is a deep hidden well of quiet resentment that has slowly accumulated in your beautiful heart over the years, a subtle, lingering anger toward the painful situations, the unfair circumstances, and the flawed people that have repeatedly caused you deep, lasting, and completely unnecessary emotional and spiritual agony. I am gently, softly, and profoundly inviting you today to finally release that heavy, toxic poison of unforgiveness into my capable hands, not because the people who deeply hurt you somehow suddenly deserve your complete pardon, but because your beautiful, vibrant soul absolutely deserves to be entirely free from the agonizing chains of your past. As you bravely and beautifully choose to let go of the heavy, dark anchors of deep resentment, you will instantly create massive, wide-open spiritual space in your beautiful heart to fully receive the stunning, rushing tide of the oceanic blessing that I am eagerly waiting to completely pour over you. Sometimes the sheer exhaustion of your incredible, difficult, and profoundly agonizing journey makes you want to completely throw your hands up in the air, quietly surrender to the overwhelming darkness, and simply stop trying to fiercely believe for the massive, impossible, and completely staggering miracles you once hoped to beautifully see. I am reaching down right now, directly into the deepest, darkest trenches of your profound spiritual weariness, to gently lift your drooping head, to softly dry your falling tears, and to breathe a completely fresh, powerful, and wildly invigorating wind of my magnificent Holy Spirit directly into your entirely depleted, fragile soul. You are so incredibly close to the breathtaking, spectacular finish line of this difficult, agonizing waiting season, and I am actively asking you to fiercely hold on for just a little while longer, because the stunning, undeniable breakthrough that is coming will absolutely eclipse every single second of your profound, temporary suffering. The quiet, persistent fear of completely failing in front of a watching, critical world is a massive, heavy chain that constantly tries to prevent you from taking the bold, necessary, and completely terrifying leaps of deep faith that are absolutely required to fully enter into your magnificent, beautiful, and staggering promised land. I want to entirely dismantle that paralyzing, toxic fear right now by lovingly reminding you that even if you awkwardly stumble, even if you momentarily fall, or even if you seemingly fail in the eyes of humans, my strong, invincible, and entirely protective hands are perfectly positioned right underneath you to catch you completely. In my glorious, unshakable kingdom, the only true, devastating failure is the tragic refusal to bravely try. Every single misstep you make while fiercely pursuing my heart is simply a beautiful, necessary, and entirely grace-filled lesson that perfectly prepares you for the ultimate, stunning, and undeniable victory I have unconditionally promised you. You quietly struggle with the deep, haunting feeling that you have somehow completely wasted years of your precious life, spending incredibly valuable time wandering aimlessly in painful wildernesses, stuck in dead-end situations, or trapped in entirely unfruitful, agonizing seasons that seemingly produced absolutely nothing of any real, lasting, or beautiful value. I want to beautifully and profoundly redeem your perspective today by assuring your beautiful heart that in my perfect, sovereign, and entirely majestic economy, absolutely nothing is ever truly wasted, and every single painful tear, delayed dream, and difficult lesson is currently being beautifully woven into the stunning, breathtaking tapestry of your ultimate destiny. I am the absolute master of total, miraculous restoration, and I am about to beautifully return to you the years that the locusts have painfully eaten, replacing your profound, lingering regrets with a stunning, overwhelming, and completely oceanic harvest of unprecedented, magnificent, and truly glorious divine favor. It feels completely impossible for you to genuinely believe that someone as powerful, majestic, and entirely infinite as the creator of the entire universe would intimately care about the tiny, seemingly insignificant, and incredibly mundane details of your small, quiet, and completely ordinary everyday life. But I want you to understand with absolute, unshakable certainty that my incredibly vast, profound, and fiery love for you is so incredibly deep, so intimately personal, and so beautifully detailed that I actually know the exact number of hairs on your beautiful head and the precise rhythm of your softly beating heart. I am deeply, passionately, and entirely invested in absolutely every single tiny facet of your beautiful existence, and the stunning, massive ocean of breathtaking blessings I am preparing is meticulously tailored to perfectly address the most incredibly specific, deeply personal, and entirely hidden desires of your magnificent, trusting soul. You have carried the deeply painful, profoundly agonizing burden of complete misunderstanding for so incredibly long, quietly feeling like a completely alien presence in a harsh, critical world that constantly demands you to drastically change, aggressively conform, or painfully shrink your beautiful, vibrant spirit just to make other people feel slightly more comfortable. I'm officially declaring that your painful, difficult season of agonizingly twisting yourself into small, unnatural, and completely suffocating shapes to please incredibly flawed, small-minded people is now completely, entirely, and permanently over, and a beautiful, expansive new era of total, profound, and deeply authentic spiritual freedom has powerfully begun. You are now entirely free to completely stretch out, to boldly stand incredibly tall, and to beautifully shine with the absolute, undiluted, and staggering brilliance of my magnificent spirit. Because the incredible blessing I am releasing requires you to be exactly the stunning, unique, and powerful masterpiece I entirely created you to be. The deep, dark anxiety that often coldly grips your beautiful heart in the middle of the quiet, lonely night is completely, desperately trying to forcefully convince you that the magnificent, beautiful things you are fiercely hoping for are simply a foolish, naive, and entirely childish fantasy that will never truly materialize. I deeply, passionately want you to powerfully recognize that paralyzing, toxic anxiety as a completely deceptive, entirely false alarm, a desperate, fading attack from an entirely defeated enemy who is absolutely terrified of the magnificent, staggering, and incredibly beautiful spiritual power that you're about to completely step into. When that cold, dark panic tries to completely overwhelm your fragile, tender mind, I want you to bravely, powerfully wrap yourself entirely in the warm, secure, and incredibly comforting blanket of my absolute, unchanging, and deeply majestic promises, knowing that I have absolutely never failed you, and I will certainly not start failing you now. You are deeply, profoundly hesitant to truly ask me for the completely impossible, massive, and entirely stunning things because you incorrectly believe that your incredibly bold, audacious prayers might somehow entirely exhaust my resources, deeply frustrate my patience, or completely test the absolute limits of my boundless, incredible grace. My precious, beautiful, and deeply beloved child, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I completely breathe the infinite, staggering galaxies into glorious existence with a single, quiet whisper, and my vast, magnificent, and entirely inexhaustible resources are absolutely, completely, and permanently limitless in absolutely every conceivable direction. The only thing that truly, deeply breaks my loving, compassionate heart is when you entirely refuse to beautifully ask me for the massive, stunning, and profoundly incredible things, simply because you have completely forgotten the breathtaking, unimaginable, and entirely limitless magnitude of the incredibly powerful, universally sovereign God who absolutely adores you. Sometimes the deeply profound physical and emotional toll of your incredibly long, painful waiting season makes you feel like your entire beautiful heart has been completely turned to solid, unfeeling stone, leaving you entirely numb, profoundly exhausted, and deeply incapable of feeling genuine, pure, and beautifully unadulterated joy ever again. I am gently, softly, and profoundly pressing my warm, incredibly loving, and deeply healing hands directly against the cold, hard, and entirely bruised places of your beautiful spirit right now, actively melting away the painful, icy layers of profound cynicism, complete exhaustion, and deep, agonizing despair that have completely encrusted your tender soul. I am beautifully, entirely, and miraculously resurrecting your profound, God-given capacity to deeply feel, to fiercely hope, and to completely rejoice, beautifully preparing your entire emotional and spiritual being to fully, completely, and joyfully embrace the stunning, breathtaking, and deeply overwhelming ocean of magnificent grace that is about to completely flood your life. As we intimately sit together in this beautiful, deeply sacred, and completely healing space, I completely want you to fiercely, profoundly acknowledge that every single deep struggle, every agonizing tear, and every painful, terrifying moment of your incredibly difficult journey has been completely, entirely seen, perfectly understood, and deeply honored by my compassionate heart. You have absolutely not suffered in vain. You have entirely not walked this incredibly dark, painful road for nothing. And the deeply profound, agonizing sacrifices you have quietly made in the absolute darkness are about to be completely, spectacularly, and entirely rewarded in the absolute, blazing, and undeniably glorious light. The heavy, difficult, and profoundly painful chapter of your deep, exhausting struggles is currently permanently closing, and the magnificent, breathtaking, and entirely stunning new chapter of your ultimate, glorious, and beautiful divine vindication is eagerly, joyfully, and absolutely powerfully beginning right now in this exact, incredibly beautiful, and completely miraculous moment. This exact, perfectly appointed moment in your beautiful, completely unique life is the deeply sacred, entirely miraculous, and truly profound turning point where absolutely everything that has been deeply confusing, incredibly painful, and entirely broken will finally begin to perfectly make complete, beautiful, and stunning sense in the grand tapestry of your destiny. I am officially pulling back the heavy, dark, and entirely confusing curtain of your incredibly difficult, agonizing past to beautifully, profoundly reveal the deeper, deeply staggering, and entirely glorious truth behind absolutely every single moment of the profound, intense hardship that you have so bravely, quietly, and completely endured. The deep, agonizing pain that almost completely destroyed your fragile, tender heart was actually the exact, perfectly calibrated, and entirely necessary fire of divine, loving refinement that I gently, lovingly, and precisely used to completely refine your beautiful, magnificent soul, perfectly preparing you to successfully carry the massive, incredible weight of my stunning, oceanic glory. I want to completely, permanently, and deeply rewrite your entire internal narrative right now, beautifully reframing absolutely everything that you have previously viewed as a deeply devastating loss, a painful, agonizing delay, or a complete, devastating failure into exactly what it truly, genuinely was, my perfect, loving, and deeply protective divine preparation. The incredibly painful doors that forcefully slam shut in your entirely beautiful face, the deep, agonizing relationships that completely broke your tender, fragile heart, and the magnificent soaring dreams that seemingly died in the cold, dark dirt were absolutely all part of my profound, entirely brilliant, and incredibly beautiful alignment process. I was actively, fiercely, and completely protecting your incredibly beautiful, deeply cherished, and entirely unique destiny from small, insignificant, and entirely inadequate things, ensuring that you would be perfectly, flawlessly, and beautifully positioned for the massive, stunning, and entirely oceanic release of my boundless, magnificent grace that is currently rushing toward you. Please hear this deeply profound, entirely absolute, and incredibly liberating truth with absolutely every single beautiful fiber of your magnificent, precious being, the stunning, breathtaking, and entirely massive blessings I am about to completely pour over your unique life are inextricably tied to my entirely limitless resources, not your small, flawed resume. You have spent so incredibly much precious, valuable time desperately trying to entirely perfectly polish your completely inadequate human qualifications, anxiously trying to prove to a completely blind world that you are truly worthy of the beautiful, deeply profound, and magnificent things you fiercely, passionately desire deep within your precious heart. But I am absolutely not looking at your tiny, fragile, and entirely imperfect earthly accomplishments. I am looking entirely, perfectly, and completely at the magnificent, beautiful, and staggering finished work of my incredible grace on the cross, which makes you instantly, perfectly, and absolutely entirely qualified to receive absolutely everything I have promised. The truly breathtaking, completely staggering, and deeply magnificent scale of what I am about to absolutely unexpectedly release into your entire, completely unique life is not just entirely for your own beautiful, personal comfort. It is completely intended to absolutely stun the entire observing, skeptical world and fiercely display my undeniable, glorious power through you. I am specifically, intentionally, and beautifully choosing exactly you, the deeply sensitive, completely unlikely, and entirely unassuming person who has so quietly, gracefully, and completely struggled in the unseen shadows. To be the absolute, stunning, and deeply undeniable showcase of my completely miraculous, transformative, and entirely restorative divine favor in this deeply broken generation. When the completely blind, skeptical world finally entirely sees the magnificent, stunning, and profoundly incredible things I am doing in your entirely transformed life, they will absolutely have no other logical earthly choice but to immediately, profoundly, and completely recognize that it was entirely my powerful, majestic hand that beautifully accomplished it all. You must completely, profoundly, and entirely understand that this upcoming, magnificent, and entirely oceanic release of breathtaking favor is absolutely not about your limited, fragile human capability, but it is entirely, completely, and absolutely about my boundless, infinite, and entirely staggering divine capacity to completely perform the entirely impossible in your specific life, where your human strength completely, inevitably, and understandably ends. My deeply profound, entirely miraculous, and incredibly glorious power beautifully, completely, and entirely begins, instantly transforming your absolute deepest, most agonizing inadequacies into the exact, beautiful, and profoundly perfect platforms for my entirely undeniable, staggering, and magnificent supernatural miracles to fully manifest. You are simply the beautiful, empty, and perfectly positioned vessel. I am the completely boundless, completely rushing, and entirely unstoppable oceanic flood of pure, radiant, and undeniably glorious grace that is about to absolutely, entirely fill you up to overflowing, beautifully washing away absolutely every single trace of your agonizing doubt. Every single incredibly quiet, unseen, and profoundly painful sacrifice you have bravely, completely made in the absolute darkness is currently being beautifully, perfectly, and entirely translated into a massive, undeniable, and stunningly radiant public reward that will entirely, absolutely eclipse the deepest, darkest moments of your profound, intense, and completely exhausting spiritual agony. I have carefully, meticulously, and entirely lovingly collected absolutely every single one of your incredibly painful, completely silent tears, completely transforming them into bright, brilliant, and entirely staggering diamonds of completely undeniable, beautiful, and glorious divine favor that will entirely permanently adorn the beautiful, incredibly unique, and completely magnificent crown of your ultimate destiny. The entirely painful, deeply agonizing, and completely exhausting season of your quiet, lonely weeping in the dark night is officially, permanently, and entirely over, and the incredibly stunning, beautifully radiant, and completely undeniably glorious morning of your massive, oceanic, and truly breathtaking joy is entirely, fully breaking across the beautiful horizon of your life. Consider for a moment the majestic oak tree that endures the harshest, most brutal winter storms, standing bare and seemingly defeated against the freezing winds, only to plunge its unseen roots deeper into the life-giving soil to establish a foundation strong enough to support a brilliant canopy of spring leaves. You've been walking through a severe spiritual winter, a barren and isolating season where the freezing winds of disappointment stripped away your comfortable foliage and left you feeling exposed, vulnerable, and completely barren before the watching eyes of the unfeeling world around you. But beneath the frozen surface of your circumstances, I was actively and intentionally deepening your spiritual roots, establishing a profound, unshakable foundation of faith and character that is now fully capable of sustaining the massive, stunning, and incredibly heavy harvest of abundant fruit I am preparing to hang upon your branches. I'm replacing the spirit of heaviness that has cloaked your daily existence with a vibrant, glowing garment of spontaneous praise, completely shifting the internal atmosphere of your mind from a state of constant, exhausting survival to a thrilling, expansive realm of boundless thriving and effortless joy. The mental fog that has made every decision feel like a monumental, draining task is lifting right now by the authority of my spoken word, and a pristine, crystal clear spiritual vision is taking its place, allowing you to see the brilliant, multidimensional pathways of success that I have intricately laid out before your feet. You will no longer stumble through your days relying on your own depleted reserves of willpower, because you are being seamlessly plugged into the endless, pulsating, and electric current of my divine energy, empowering you to accomplish magnificent feats with a supernatural grace that will leave onlookers utterly bewildered. As I orchestrate this magnificent turning point in your journey, I want you to release any lingering attachment to the painful identity of a victim, discarding the heavy, comfortable blanket of past trauma that you have wrapped around your soul for emotional warmth during the long, freezing nights of your suffering. You are not defined by the terrible things that have happened to you, nor are you limited by the cruel words spoken over you by people who were projecting their own profound insecurities onto your bright, shining potential. You are entirely defined by the unshakable, victorious, and royal identity I have bestowed upon you. Step fiercely and gracefully into your royal inheritance, standing incredibly tall with your shoulders pulled back, knowing that the King of Kings has personally endorsed your life, sealed your ultimate victory with his own blood, and is currently rolling out the red carpet of unprecedented favor for you to confidently walk upon. The very obstacles that the enemy strategically placed in your path to cause your permanent downfall, the immense boulders of adversity that were intended to completely crush your spirit and block your access to my presence, are currently being miraculously transformed by my hand into a spectacular, elevated staircase leading straight to your triumph. I am the God who masterfully flips the script, who takes the ashes of your most devastating, humiliating failures and meticulously crafts them into a stunning, jaw-dropping crown of radiant beauty that commands deep respect and profound awe from everyone who previously doubted your calling or dismissed your worth. What was meant for your absolute destruction is being spectacularly repurposed for your glorious elevation, proving to the entire universe that no weapon forged against your tender heart will ever prosper. And every mocking tongue raised against you in judgment will be decisively and permanently silenced by the undeniable evidence of my blessing. Look closely at the incredibly vast, shimmering horizon of your approaching future, and let the sheer, breathtaking magnitude of my infinite love wash over your weary mind, completely dissolving the microscopic, fear-based limitations that your earthly experiences have falsely programmed into your spiritual consciousness. I am not a god of scarcity. I do not operate within the tight, suffocating boundaries of human logic, and my heavenly economy is not subject to the depressing downward trends of the earthly systems that constantly preach lack, inevitable recession, and permanent hardship. I am the creator of limitless galaxies, the author of infinite abundance, and I am currently opening the majestic floodgates of heaven directly over your specific address, pouring out a rushing, unstoppable river of supernatural provision that will completely overflow the banks of your highest expectations and effortlessly saturate every dry, desolate area of your life. The stunning revelation of my grace in your current season will entirely redefine your understanding of what it means to be truly, unconditionally loved, dismantling the exhausting religious frameworks that have falsely taught you to constantly hustle, perform, and painfully strive just to earn a tiny, insignificant crumb of my fleeting affection. My love for you is not a transaction. It is a permanent, unbreakable, and fiercely passionate covenant that was settled in the eternal heavens before you even took your first fragile breath on this earth, completely guaranteeing your absolute success, profound healing, and ultimate victory, regardless of your own human frailties. You can finally stop running on the exhausting treadmill of perfectionism. You can step off the draining hamster wheel of constant performance, and you can beautifully sink into the soft, luxurious, and infinitely comforting reality that you are already chosen, already cherished, and already pre-approved for the massive miracle headed your way. Let the incredible truth of this sacred revelation sink deeply into the very marrow of your bones. The stunning oceanic release of blessings I have prepared is completely custom-tailored to perfectly match the unique, intricate, and profoundly beautiful design of your specific, individual calling in this critical moment of human history. I am not handing you a generic, one-size-fits-all blessing that forces you to awkwardly adjust your personality or painfully suppress your true nature. I am delivering a bespoke, exquisitely crafted miracle that requires you to be exactly who you are, with all of your wonderful quirks, intense passions, and deeply feeling sensitivities intact. Your authentic, unguarded self is the absolute perfect receptacle for my incoming glory. And the moment you finally stop apologizing for the wonderful way I made you is the exact moment the heavy dam will burst, completely flooding your reality with a stunning, personalized manifestation of my ultimate best. As the brilliant, unclouded light of my deep revelation perfectly illuminates the hidden recesses of your mind, you will begin to visibly see how every single closed door in your past was actually a heavy shield of my divine protection, forcefully bouncing you away from subtle traps and unseen dangers that would have derailed your destiny. The romantic relationships that painfully shattered, the career opportunities that mysteriously vanished into thin air, and the financial investments that seemingly yielded no immediate fruit were all profoundly orchestrated acts of my severe mercy, actively preserving your precious energy and pure focus for the monumental, staggering upgrade that is now entirely at hand. You can finally exhale a massive, cleansing breath of pure relief, permanently retiring your lingering regrets and beautifully forgiving your past self, fully understanding that my sovereign hand was perfectly guiding the entire chaotic process to deliver you safely to this exact, magnificent, and entirely miraculous spiritual climax. I'm downloading a completely new, incredibly robust, and highly advanced spiritual operating system into your consciousness right now, completely overwriting the glitchy, fear-based, and severely outdated programming that has caused you to constantly crash, freeze, and short-circuit whenever you faced a significant challenge or a major spiritual opportunity. This supernatural mental upgrade will grant you instantaneous access to my profound, unsearchable wisdom, allowing you to effortlessly navigate complex, intimidating situations with a cool, collected, and undeniably regal composure that will leave your peers and your critics absolutely astounded by your sudden, inexplicable transformation. You will no longer react to adversity with crippling anxiety or frantic panic. Instead, you will gracefully command the turbulent storms of your life to immediately cease, operating in the quiet, undeniable, and staggering authority of a beloved child who entirely knows the limitless power of their Heavenly Father. The beautiful, awe-inspiring capacity of my spirit to perform the impossible is completely untethered from the depressing, restrictive, and entirely pessimistic statistics of the broken world, meaning that your upcoming, stunning breakthrough will absolutely defy every logical explanation, completely breaking the standard rules of predictable human achievement. Medical experts may have given you a grim, hopeless prognosis. Financial advisors may have told you that your massive debt is mathematically impossible to conquer, and relationship counselors may have declared your most cherished connections entirely dead and permanently unsalvageable. I want you to gently hand all of those depressing, earthly reports directly to me, completely trusting that I am the ultimate, supreme authority over every natural law. And I am about to profoundly interrupt your difficult circumstances with a staggering, undeniable, and completely logic-defying miracle that will force everyone to acknowledge my glory. Do you fully comprehend the staggering, awe-inspiring reality that the very same majestic, unstoppable power that forcefully rolled the massive heavy stone away from the empty tomb and violently conquered the cold, permanent grip of death is currently, actively and passionately living directly inside of your own incredibly beautiful breathing chest? You are not a weak, helpless or entirely fragile victim, passively waiting for the cruel circumstances of life to dictate your ultimate destiny. You are a fully empowered, brilliantly equipped, and fiercely protected warrior of light who carries the absolute, concentrated power of the entire universe directly within your very own spiritual DNA. It is time for you to completely stop begging the darkness to politely leave you alone and to start boldly, fiercely, and undeniably commanding the brilliant, blazing light of my kingdom to entirely consume absolutely every single shadow of fear, lack, and sickness that has ever dared to illegally trespass upon your territory. The deep, agonizing and entirely exhausting process of profound spiritual refinement you have recently endured was not intended to break your spirit, but to completely burn away the flammable, fragile layers of your deep-seated pride, hidden insecurities, and false self-reliance, leaving behind only the pure, indestructible, and completely radiant gold of my spirit. You have successfully passed through the terrifying, roaring flames of the fiery furnace, and you are stepping out on the other side entirely unharmed, smelling absolutely nothing like the thick, choking smoke of the devastating fires that desperately tried to completely consume your mind, your health, and your precious, beautiful family. Your absolute, undeniable survival is a staggering, breathtaking miracle in itself, serving as a powerful, permanent, and completely unarguable testament to the world that whoever is entirely hidden within the safe, secure, and incredibly loving refuge of my presence is absolutely invincible, permanently untouchable, and forever victorious. I am actively shifting the spiritual atmosphere around you from a heavy, suffocating posture of constant, desperate defense to a massive, exhilarating, and completely thrilling posture of beautiful, unstoppable, and entirely glorious offense, where you are no longer just surviving the attacks, but actively, boldly, and beautifully advancing the brilliant borders of my kingdom. The days of you constantly shrinking back, quietly hiding your brilliant, radiant light under a proverbial bushel and softly apologizing for the massive, profound spiritual authority I have given you are permanently, officially, and completely finished, buried forever in the dusty, forgotten archives of your incredibly painful but deeply necessary history. You are now boldly stepping into a season of fierce, unapologetic, and completely stunning spiritual dominance, where your very presence in a completely ordinary room will instantly shift the atmosphere, completely dismantle the silent plans of the enemy, and beautifully release a massive, rushing wave of my healing, comforting peace. Let this magnificent, profound, and entirely transformative revelation permanently settle deep within your spirit, the absolute, staggering, and incredibly beautiful climax of your deeply personal story is not going to be a quiet, barely noticeable whisper of mild, average relief, but a massive, stunning, and completely deafening roar of absolute, undeniable, divine victory. The entire incredibly vast and beautiful universe is currently standing entirely on its tiptoes, completely holding its collective, breathless anticipation to watch the magnificent, stunning, and deeply profound oceanic blessing I am about to absolutely unexpectedly release into your entire, completely unique, fiercely resilient, and infinitely cherished life. You have patiently endured the dark, painful night with incredible, beautiful grace, and now, my beloved, deeply precious child, it is finally, entirely and completely your magnificent, stunning, and undeniable time to beautifully, fiercely, and brilliantly shine with the absolute, undiluted, and glorious light of my ultimate, breathtaking favor. Now that you have profoundly heard the deep, beating rhythm of my absolute, unconditional love and fully comprehended the magnificent, staggering scale of the oceanic blessing that is currently rushing toward your beautiful life, I gently, lovingly, and fiercely commission you to immediately, boldly, and completely stretch the tight boundaries of your spiritual vision. I want you to grab a tangible pen, find a clean, blank piece of paper, and bravely, unapologetically write down the absolute wildest, most magnificent, and seemingly impossible version of the beautiful dream that is currently burning a quiet, persistent hole in the very center of your incredibly tender, deeply hopeful heart. Do not edit your massive desires to fit the fragile, small-minded logic of your current earthly limitations, for I am ready to entirely over-deliver beyond your wildest imagination. I am softly, intimately commanding you to deliberately, consciously, and aggressively quiet the loud, toxic, and incredibly annoying inner critic that constantly tries to violently sabotage your precious, fragile hope by whispering dark, terrible, and entirely baseless lies about your profound worthiness, your brilliant capabilities, and your completely stunning, magnificent destiny. You must actively, fiercely, and beautifully counteract every single self-limiting thought, every dark surge of sudden anxiety, and every cold wave of deep imposter syndrome today with a solid, immovable, and incredibly powerful scripture that undeniably declares your absolute, unbreakable, and entirely royal identity as my deeply cherished, intimately known, and highly favored child. When the enemy desperately tries to loudly remind you of your incredibly painful, completely flawed, and entirely messy past, I want you to boldly, fiercely, and instantly remind him of his completely defeated, eternally sealed, and undeniably permanent future resting securely in the absolute, unquestionable reality of my finished, glorious work. It is absolutely crucial right now that you begin to intentionally, actively, and profoundly walk in the massive, stunning, and completely undeniable spiritual authority that I have legally, permanently, and entirely bestowed upon you through the magnificent, breathtaking sacrifice of my perfect, infinite, and beautifully encompassing grace. I am gently asking you to consciously, physically adjust your entire bodily posture today, to proudly pull your weary shoulders back, to bravely lift your drooping head incredibly high, and to deliberately alter the tone of your everyday voice, to accurately, beautifully reflect a deep, unshakable confidence, entirely removing any lingering trace of fearful timidity. You are a completely authorized, heavily backed, and fiercely protected ambassador of the absolute highest kingdom in the entire universe, and you absolutely must start carrying yourself with the profound, quiet, and completely undeniable dignity of someone who inherently knows they are permanently backed by the infinite, staggering resources of heaven itself. Do not allow the temporary, superficial illusions of your current earthly reality to successfully intimidate you, nor let the loud, chaotic noise of the incredibly confused, desperately broken world around you distract your entirely beautiful, focused mind from the magnificent, stunning, and completely oceanic promises I have personally, intimately spoken over your life. Keep your beautiful, tear-filled but fiercely determined eyes locked entirely, intensely, and beautifully on my constant, unchanging, and incredibly majestic face, fully trusting that my strong, capable hands are actively, fiercely, and perfectly managing absolutely every single complex, intimidating, and deeply confusing detail of your entire magnificent, beautiful transition behind the unseen scenes. You are currently entirely enveloped in a massive, impenetrable, and completely invisible bubble of my absolute divine protection, entirely shielding your fragile, tender heart from any outside force that would aggressively attempt to steal, delay, or maliciously corrupt the stunning, breathtaking miracle I'm currently bringing into full, undeniable manifestation. The beautiful, profound courage I am asking you to fiercely display right now is not the loud, aggressive, or completely abrasive arrogance of the broken world, but rather the quiet, deep, and incredibly gentle strength of a completely surrendered heart that entirely trusts the perfect, flawless, and deeply loving character of its majestic creator. True, breathtaking spiritual authority is beautifully found in the completely peaceful, profoundly calm, and entirely unshakable knowing that you absolutely do not have to fiercely fight your own incredibly difficult battles anymore, because I have already completely, permanently, and undeniably won absolutely every single victory on your behalf before you even stepped onto the battlefield. Your only actual necessary job in this entirely magnificent, completely stunning season of profound transition is to actively, beautifully, and fiercely rest in my absolute goodness, allowing my massive, rushing river of unmerited favor to gently, effortlessly, and completely carry you directly into the stunning, promised manifestation of your deepest, most profound desires. Whenever you feel an overwhelming, completely paralyzing wave of sudden anxiety violently threatening to completely submerge your beautifully tender, entirely fragile mind, I gently, lovingly invite you to completely pause, take a deep, slow, and restorative breath, and quietly whisper my powerful, holy, and completely calming name into the empty, silent air around you. The absolute staggering power deeply entirely embedded within the magnificent, beautiful syllables of my holy name is completely enough to instantly, violently shatter the heaviest, darkest chains of panic, immediately forcefully silencing the chaotic storms in your mind and beautifully flooding your entire, completely exhausted nervous system with my profound, deeply soothing, and supernatural peace. You absolutely never have to frantically white-knuckle your way through another terrifying, deeply confusing panic attack alone, because my entirely comforting, completely massive, and undeniably majestic presence is literally always just a single, quiet and deeply desperate whispered breath entirely away from rescuing your entire beautiful, completely overwhelmed soul. I profoundly, deeply, and absolutely fiercely believe in the incredible, massive, and truly breathtaking destiny that I specifically, beautifully wrote for you before the ancient foundations of the incredibly vast, stunning earth were ever even formed, and absolutely nothing that has happened in your past can ever entirely erase that permanent decree. Your incredible, deeply beautiful, and profoundly resilient spirit has bravely, fiercely endured the most agonizing, completely devastating, and entirely unfair circumstances. Yet you have somehow beautifully managed to keep your tender, incredibly precious heart entirely soft, fiercely open, and deeply receptive to the gentle, soft, and incredibly comforting whispers of my holy, magnificent spirit. That profound, beautiful, and completely heroic internal resilience is exactly why you are absolutely, entirely, and completely perfectly suited to successfully, beautifully, and safely steward the massive, stunning, and truly oceanic flood of incredible divine favor, brilliant wealth, and profound spiritual influence that I am currently pouring entirely out over your specific life. Please gracefully, beautifully, and entirely release the heavy, exhausting, and completely impossible burden of constantly trying to logically, intellectually figure out exactly how, when, and perfectly where the stunning, incredible, and completely breathtaking breakthrough is actually going to physically manifest in your incredibly complex, entirely confusing, and beautifully messy, everyday earthly reality. My majestic, unsearchable, and entirely infinite ways are vastly, completely, and undeniably higher than your incredibly limited, perfectly normal human ways, and my spectacular, breathtaking methods of miraculous deliverance absolutely never, ever fit neatly or comfortably into the tiny, logical, and severely restricted boxes of your own limited, fragile human understanding or careful planning. Your beautiful, entirely essential assignment is simply to completely, fiercely, and actively maintain a deep, unwavering posture of radical trust and entirely expectant, completely unyielding faith, while entirely allowing me, the supreme architect of the vast universe, to perfectly handle the incredibly complex, completely staggering logistics of your ultimate, breathtaking, and deeply undeniable divine rescue. As you quietly and completely align your entire heart, mind, and spirit with this profound, entirely transformative, and deeply comforting message, I actively, fiercely command a totally fresh, beautiful, and wildly invigorating wind of deep spiritual momentum to completely, violently blow through absolutely every single stagnant, dead, and incredibly dry area of your life. The entirely locked, heavy, and rusted doors that have fiercely, stubbornly resisted your desperate, exhausting pushing for completely agonizing years are right now beautifully, effortlessly, and completely silently swinging entirely wide open by the absolute, undeniable, and stunningly gentle authority of my entirely majestic, completely invincible, and entirely loving, soft, and beautifully powerful spirit. You are actively stepping completely, entirely out of the dark, incredibly heavy, and completely suffocating tomb of your long, agonizing waiting season, and entirely fully stepping into the absolute, bright, blazing, and undeniably glorious sunlight of your massive, stunning, and profoundly life-altering divine resurrection, completely ready to receive the absolute fullness of my grace. I completely, fiercely, and beautifully promise you that the stunning, absolutely oceanic release of profound blessings I'm currently bringing directly into your entirely specific, beautifully unique life will completely, permanently, and entirely eclipse the absolute deepest, most agonizing, and entirely devastating pain of your incredibly dark, lonely, and deeply confusing past history. When you finally, beautifully stand in the complete, entirely overwhelming, and absolutely staggering fullness of your magnificently restored, fiercely healed, and profoundly favored future, you will clearly, undeniably, and beautifully look back and absolutely realize that absolutely every single tear, every single delay, and every entirely devastating loss was completely worth this exact, breathtaking moment. The profound, stunning joy that is currently actively rushing toward you is completely, entirely disproportionate to the agonizing, incredibly heavy suffering you have quietly, bravely endured, because my entirely magnificent, completely boundless, and deeply loving compensation absolutely always, wildly, completely, and undeniably over-delivers beyond your absolute wildest, most magnificent, and seemingly impossible human expectations. You are an incredibly beautiful, entirely deeply cherished, and absolutely profoundly loved masterwork of my own perfect, intentional, and entirely majestic design, and absolutely every single aspect of your magnificent, deeply sensitive, and profoundly compassionate soul is currently completely ready to entirely receive the absolutely massive, staggering, and incredibly beautiful ocean of my infinite favor. I am completely, gently washing away the dark, incredibly heavy ashes of your profound, completely exhausting spiritual burnout, entirely replacing them with a stunning, glowing, and completely radiant crown of profound, deeply vibrant, and fiercely unstoppable spiritual vitality that will completely, entirely sustain you through the magnificent, breathless, and incredibly beautiful days that are coming. Do not entirely shrink back in fear. Do not quietly, softly apologize for the absolute, staggering brightness of your divine anointing, and absolutely do not ever let the entirely broken, deeply confused world forcefully dim the absolutely blazing, entirely spectacular, and incredibly beautiful supernatural light that is currently fully activating deep inside your perfectly designed spirit. Let your profoundly weary, incredibly exhausted, and deeply fragile heart find entire, complete, and absolute perfect rest right here, safely tucked away inside the warm, infinite, and entirely comforting embrace of my permanent, unbreakable, and unconditionally loving arms, shielded from the harsh, critical, and chaotic world. I am actively fighting for your ultimate, beautiful, and complete victory behind the invisible, heavy, and completely mysterious veil of eternity, orchestrating massive, stunning, and profoundly beautiful shifts in the heavily guarded spiritual realm that will very soon vividly manifest into your specific, deeply beautiful, and perfectly tangible everyday reality. You have nothing left to anxiously fear. Absolutely nothing to forcefully or exhaustingly prove to the completely blind critics around you, and absolutely everything to wildly, deeply, and fiercely anticipate as the massive ocean of my stunning, profound, and deeply undeniable blessing perfectly crashes beautifully over your completely surrendered life. I am actively, fiercely sealing this completely profound, beautifully transformative, and deeply comforting word of absolute unyielding promise deep within the very core of your completely receptive, fiercely hoping, and absolutely tender spirit, ensuring that the dark enemy can absolutely never forcefully snatch it away from your consciousness. You are currently standing exactly on the incredibly beautiful, absolutely profound, and entirely breathtaking precipice of the most magnificent, completely staggering, and deeply incredible spiritual breakthrough that you have ever beautifully experienced in your entire, completely unique, and fiercely beautiful earthly existence up to this exact holy moment. Absolutely nothing can stop the massive, beautiful, and completely oceanic release of my favor from perfectly, completely, and entirely reaching you, because my majestic, completely sovereign, and absolutely perfect word has already gone completely beautifully out, and it will absolutely never return to my entirely loving heart empty. As we gently, softly prepare to beautifully and quietly conclude this deeply intimate, profoundly comforting, and entirely sacred moment of spiritual connection together, I softly and lovingly invite you to subscribe to this channel as a simple, entirely peaceful way of staying consistently connected to my deeply encouraging, entirely beautiful whispers. This completely gentle invitation is absolutely not a strict, rigid, or forceful command, but simply a completely open, entirely beautiful, and profoundly warm opportunity for you to continuously receive the deeply uplifting, comforting, and absolutely reassuring messages that will consistently nourish your entirely beautiful, fiercely hoping soul. By staying beautifully connected in this quiet space, you will constantly ensure that your deeply tender, entirely beautiful spirit consistently receives the profound, deeply peaceful, and entirely encouraging spiritual food it completely needs to remain profoundly strong, fiercely hopeful, and absolutely beautifully anchored in my unending love. Trust the completely profound and beautifully intricate unfolding path that I have perfectly and lovingly laid completely out, exactly directly in front of your incredibly beautiful, deeply weary, but entirely fiercely courageous feet, fully knowing that I am completely walking every single step with you through the valleys and the peaks. You are absolutely never ever walking alone in the dark, deeply confusing wilderness, because my massive, entirely radiant and beautifully comforting presence is actively shining completely bright exactly upon your specific, profoundly beloved, and completely uniquely destined path, illuminating the shadows and burning away the lingering fears. Step forward completely fearlessly today, deeply and entirely beautifully embracing the absolutely staggering, profoundly beautiful, and deeply incredible, magnificent ocean of my completely divine grace that is absolutely, officially, and entirely released specifically for you in this very hour. Go in complete, absolute, profound, and deeply comforting peace, my incredibly precious, absolutely deeply loved, and fiercely cherished beautiful child, entirely secure in my entire, completely unending, and entirely unwavering affection that will absolutely never fail you or leave you abandoned in the cold storms of life. You asked completely softly for a single, absolutely tiny, beautiful drop of completely simple comfort just to help you survive another exhausting day, but I have entirely prepared the absolutely staggering, utterly infinite ocean of everything you could ever possibly need, perfectly designed to absolutely stun you and everyone around you. Remember always, deeply within your completely beautiful, perfectly designed soul, that my infinite, entirely boundless capacity is absolutely your beautiful, stunning, and completely perfect portion, forever and always. from this breathtaking moment forward into the glorious eternity I have prepared for you.